Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. Jaylan Butler, um, okay, he was just at a swim meet with one of his teammates, right? So he was on his way back to Illinois, and what the Illinois State Police stopped at a bus. He was at the rest stop. So minding his own business, and he was the only African American swimmer on that team. So the police saw him, and the police automatically put him down to the ground. Now remember, he didn't do anything wrong. I'm gonna read this article in a second, but he didn't do anything wrong. So they put him down on the ground for no apparent reason. Both the coach and the bus driver said that he's with them. He's in the swim team at East Illinois University. So he minded his own business, and the cop did this to him. So now the ACLU is involved to file a lawsuit in his behalf. So this article comes from the Dispatch Argus, and it says traveling team mistakenly taken down by local police. ACLU has filed a lawsuit, and this is Jaylan Butler, who was a black swimmer, and he was on a swim team, like I said, minding his own business at a rest stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this article. It says, stepping off a bus at an East Moline rest stop, the out-of-town college student had no idea what was about to hit him. Jaylan Butler and his teammates from Eastern Illinois University, swim team were at the end of a long day after competing in a conference championship swim meet in South Dakota. They spent the bulk of February 24, 2019, traveling back to Charleston, Illinois, in a rented coach with their school logo plastered on the side. The parents of one of Butler's teammates lived in the Quad Cities, and arrangements were made to meet up with them at the rest area just over the Illinois border past the Interstate 80 bridge. The bus was hot, Butler recalled. We got out to stretch our legs. Though it was hot inside the bus, the temperature outside was in the teens as the hour approached 8 p.m. Butler, wearing his EIU team jacket, and was heading back onto the bus when his coach suggested he take a selfie in front of Illinois "Buckle Up, It's the Law" sign. The team had been taking pictures throughout the trip and posting them to social media to update parents and others on their location. As I took the picture, there was a line of police officers. They came to a screeching stop in front of me, Butler says. At that moment, I only knew a couple of things to do that my dad always told me. As a young black man, he had been taught by his dad to never give police a reason to think he would cause trouble. He remembered the lessons, and he dropped his phone, raised his hands, and got on the ground. He could not imagine what the police wanted with him, but they weren't messing around. Okay, let's continue this article. It says his life was threatened. Bus driver Todd Slingerland knew immediately that something was going wrong. I was sitting in the driver's seat waiting for the parents to get there, and Jaylan was the last one to get back on the bus. Slingerland said, a car screamed in, and I jumped out of the bus knowing something was going down that shouldn't be going down. As I got out, a second police car came screaming in. Two officers had Jaylan on the ground, his face pressed into the snow, and an officer's knee pressed into his back. One cop was pointing a gun, Butler and Slingerland said. Another had a gun pointed at the 19-year-old's head. Okay, he said, if you move, I'll blow your fucking head off, Butler said. Slingerland heard the same threat and shouted at the police that Jaylan was his passenger, and they were making a mistake. As he rushed back to the door of the bus and yelled for the coach, two more police vehicles arrived. The one officer was telling Jaylan they were going to arrest him for resisting. But how could they arrest him for something he hadn't done? Slingerland asked. Their excuse for taking Butler into custody was that they thought the bus was being held hostage. I'm going to stop you right there, people. So let me get this right. This bus says Eastern Illinois University, EIU. Okay. Jaylan Butler was on the bus. He was the only black swimmer on that bus, minding his own business, people. Unfortunately, um, police thought he hold the entire bus hostage, but he was a member of the swim team. So why would he hold this bus hostage? And a bus driver even said, no, he's a passenger. In other words, he's with us. But the police didn't listen. So he put this 19-year-old on the ground, or on the snow. By the way, one of the officers put his knee on his back and his gun in the gun in his face. So it shows that these officers knew what they were doing. They're not stupid. I guess they're thinking that, well, he fit the description type thing. Which to me, it shows that everybody's trying to tell these officers that he was a passenger and he was a swimmer on the swim meet, right? So, and he just got back from South Dakota at a swim meet, and the thing of it is, he was at a rest stop, and he was minding his own business. So why do they think that the bus was held hostage? I don't understand, but let's continue reading this article. But before I continue reading this article, it shows that the police officers, they're basically really want to go after this man for no apparent reason because he was black. He's a black swimmer. That's it. And he didn't do anything wrong. He had no priors. And he was he was a passenger. He's one of the college students. But yet the police says that, quote unquote, well, we all thought that the bus was, in other words, well, he was held hostage. Really? Seriously? He's a college student? He was a swimmer? Let's continue, people. I had all the lights on, so the bus was lit up. The bus had EIU on the side, and Jaylan was wearing an EIU jacket. I told them to get the sheriff over there because this was a very big mistake. They said the sheriff was busy with an active shooter event. Meanwhile, Butler's mind was reeling what in the world was going on. Let's continue. Assaulting an innocent victim. At least 2 Rock Island County Sheriff's deputies had rushed into the rest area, along with at least 1 officer from the East Moline and Hampton police departments. The identity of the 2 officers is unclear. The reason for their interest in Butler likely will be made known in the U.S. District Court in Rock Island, where the ACLU out of Chicago has filed a lawsuit against 6 officers, including 2 were named as John Does. The suit alleges Butler was the victim of unlawful search and seizure, false arrest, excessive detention, excessive force, failure of bystander officers to intervene in unconstitutional conduct, and assault. Butler and the bus driver, Slingerland, said they immediately knew that the police were making a big mistake. When the police realized it too, they said they took off. I'm an old Navy man, says Slingerland, who had been an over-the-road driver for nearly 30 years. I've seen a lot, but I've never seen anybody screw something up as bad as they did this, especially the first 2 officers. None of this makes sense. I'm going to stop you right there. It always makes sense, all right. They knew exactly what they're doing. They knew that that Jaylan was one of the swimmers. They knew that the EIU, the bus says Eastern Illinois University on the side of the bus. So they knew exactly what they're doing. They didn't care. That's the point. They don't care. When they see a brother, they think he's a suspect. He's a criminal. So they put the brother down because they knew they knew the officers was wrong. And that's why the ACLU is involved in this. They knew that these 6 officers, was responsible for all of this. And I'm glad they're suing them because, again, that's the violation of Jaylan Butler's rights as a human being, as a citizen. and they still going to do what they do. And they said that, and so Slingerland said, well, none of this makes sense. It makes perfect sense. He's a black man. He's the only black man on your bus. That's who they targeting the most because they think that he's a threat. You know, that's how officers are. They see a black man as a threat. They didn't care if he's a college student or an ordinary person or a thug who didn't do anything wrong. They still gonna go after him because he's a black man. Plain and simple. Let's continue on. It says, I have all the respect in the world for police officers, but I want to body slam that guy who said what he said about shooting Jaylan. Slingerland said he is certain it was a Rock Island County Sheriff's deputy who put the gun to the 19-year-old's head and threatened to shoot him. As far as I was concerned, they were assaulting an innocent victim with a deadly force, Slingerland said. Butler said he knew what was happening was wrong. In fact, at one point, he asked for the badge number of the officer who threatened to kill him. He was ignored, he says. Mr. Butler informed at least 2 defendant officers that he wanted to make a complaint. The ACLU lawsuit alleges. The first defendant ignored him. The second defendant said, there's nothing I could do. I'm going to stop you right there. That's bull crap, and they know it. They know it's bull crap. It's always something you can do. You can go over their heads. You can go to their superiors before the ACLU. So they knew. The only problem with these officers, they don't want to be stripped by their badges. They don't want to get kicked off the force. So they're making excuses on why. They said, well, there's nothing I can do. You know, they ignore them. They don't want to have nothing to do with it because they know, because they know that once the superiors know what's going on, then they're going to be in serious trouble. But knowing them, they're going to place an administrative leave, paid administrative leave. That's what these officers do. Every time they do something wrong, ladies and gentlemen, they've been placed on administrative leave. But they don't care. That's my point. They don't care. They see a black man. They see a threat. Let's take him out of the bus. Let's put him on the ground. Put the gun in the face to scare him. That's what they do. Now, you know, in this case, ladies and gentlemen, that, you know, we've seen this time and time again, people, how officers treating black men in this country, unarmed black men and women in this country, and this is no better. You know, he's a college student. He was a member of the swim team. What do you expect for him? There's a bus that shows Eastern Illinois University on the side of it, and the officers don't care. And I guarantee you that the police union are going to defend these officers and say that what happened to him was justified. Watch what I tell you. But it shows, ladies and gentlemen, that they don't care if he's in college or he's a swimmer or not. They see a black man, they see a threat, they're going to go after him. All right, let's continue. Neither defendant gave Mr. Butler any of the defendant's names, badge numbers, law enforcement agencies, affiliation. Of course, because they don't want to be identified, who they are, where they from, because they knew they would have been in trouble, or any other information to enable him to file a complaint. The officers knew, according to the lawsuit, that they had made a mistake. Then they made matters worse. Defendants quickly realized that Mr. Butler was not the suspect for whom they were searching. Of course that he's not. He's not a suspect. Even the bus driver told you, even the coach, his coach even told you he's not a suspect. And the bus says Eastern Illinois University. He has a jacket that said EIU on it. So the thing of it is that they don't. That's what I'm saying. These police officers are so stupid. They seen his jacket. He's part of the swim team. He's a member of he's a student at this university. And then they say, oh, wow. Then they finally realized they made a mistake. After all this time, you caused this young man this trouble. So, I'm going to continue this. It said that they were searching and informed the local dispatchers that it was a false alarm. Okay. The suit states, after several minutes of forcing Mr. Butler to lie face down on the ground while handcuffed, defendants allowed Mr. Butler to sit up. They did not, however, remove his handcuffs or inform him that he was free to go, even though they had already recognized that Mr. Butler was not the suspect for whom they were searching. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna stop you right there. They knew who he was, and they know what they know what he was doing. They know exactly what they was doing to Jaylan Butler. They saw a black man. They forced the black man on the ground. Even though the coach, his coach, and his bus driver both told these officers that he's a student, and in the bus he was one of my passengers, and he had a jacket that said EIU on it, Eastern Illinois University, and you got the Eastern Illinois University bus on the side of the bus. So, and you still want to handcuff this man, put this man on the ground, put the gun in his face, and threaten him, say, I'm going to kill you, I want to shoot you. This is why I said that I'm glad that the ACLU, and like I said, not just the ACLU need to file a lawsuit, but his parents, him and his parents also individually need to file a lawsuit against these officers. Because what they did, they violated this young man's rights. They have. And even they knew that he wasn't a suspect, they kept the handcuffs on. Why did they keep the handcuffs on? To embarrass this young man. And you notice that they not even identify these officers. They ain't gonna tell them the badge numbers, what precinct they from, or nothing. But that's how they are. And like I said, if it wasn't for the coach, if it wasn't for the bus driver, I don't know what would happen to this young man. We'll probably have to hashtag justice for Jaylan Butler. If it wasn't for the head coach, if it wasn't for the bus driver that drive those swim team at there, it would have been hashtag justice for Jaylan Butler. Because again, the officers knew what they were doing, and they don't care what they say. Because they think he's a criminal, he's a suspect. So let me go ahead and go on. It says, instead, according to the lawsuit, the officers told Butler he was being arrested for resisting arrest. Really? They took him to the squad car, patted him down, searched his coat pockets, and placed him in the back of a squad car for several minutes. Then they removed him from the car, took off the cuffs, and told him to get his ID off the bus. So after all this, you handcuffed him, you put this brother on the ground, you got his gun in front of his face, and then they sent him and they placed him under arrest anyway for resisting arrest. But yet, you knew that he didn't do anything wrong. The coach and the bus driver said that he was with them. He just come back from, he was part of the swim team. They knew this and they don't care. They want to embarrass his brother. They really don't care, ladies and gentlemen. They did all of this and they finally took off his handcuffs after all this time, and they want him to get an ID to make sure that he's him. Wow. After producing his ID, Butler was released from police custody, and the officers were gone. Rock Island County State's Attorney Dora Villarreal, whose office will defend the two county deputies, said in the suit, and it is her understanding the two John Doe defendants were not with the sheriff's department. Asked what the officers were looking for that night, Villarreal said they were called in to assist on the Henry County incident. Henry County Sheriff Kerry Locke looked up records from the February 24 and said there's no reports were filed by the Henry County deputies. Call logs gave hints about what police may have been after. Yeah, we know that. We know that. There's no, the thing of it is, there is no call. These officers saw a black man on the bus. They think he was a threat. He'd mind his own business. He was at a rest stop. He was minding his own business. All of a sudden, All the police showed up. You know, he was being a college student. He was on a swimming team. He was minding his own business when police officers just grabbed him, put him on the ground, handcuffed him, put the gun in his face, and he didn't do anything wrong. So I mean, it was a big mess, and even if they find out that wasn't the guy they was looking for, he still was in handcuffs. And then they said, "Well, you're under arrest for resisting." What? So they put the brother in the back of the police vehicle, and then all of a sudden they finally realized that this wasn't the guy they was looking for. But they know that, they knew that, right? And then he took off the handcuffs and made the young man get his ID, and they finally realized that's the same guy. They finally let him go. I mean, out of all of this trouble, and they knew that there was no call, no reports filed, because there's no call at all. Let's keep it moving. At 7:02 p.m. Central, Lonka said Illinois State Police asked for Henry County's assistance in pursuing a man in a vehicle who shot at a truck on Interstate 80 in Anawan. The records he found show the suspect vehicle went into Rock Island County and wrecked. He doesn't know where he said because he has no records of what happened after the vehicle left Henry County. Rock Island County Sheriff Jerry Bustos said he knew little about the incident, but said he was not, as the officer who arrested Butler are said to be okay. The officer who arrested Butler are said to have claimed responding to an active shooter event that night. Asked to look at the county records to determine what police were responding to on the night of February 24, Bustos replied, "Looks like the closest we can find was a call of a 10-year-old child in Port Byron, possibly waving a gun around down by the railroad tracks. It was a toy gun." Deputy did follow up with parent. Sheriff Lonka in Henry County said his deputies asked for the Rock Island County's help only after his department was asked by Illinois State Police to assist, but the state police declined to supply any information whatsoever. Of course, they're not going to supply, because they knew what they did to this young man was wrong, and they claimed it was an active shooter, and it turns out it was a 10-year-old child waving a toy gun, and parents, said the same thing. It was just a toy gun. But you see how these officers reacted, ladies and gentlemen? You see how they put this young man through? And so this is why, and the officers refusing to give them that information. So this is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, that, this brother shouldn't even be treated like this. And like I said before, luckily, if it wasn't for the coach that was there, if it wasn't for the bus driver that was there, cooperate with the coach, and what Jaylan Butler told the officer, it would have been another hashtag. It would have been another hashtag, justice for Jaylan Butler. He would have been killed that night over what these officers did to him. Let's continue. Excuse me. In response to the Freedom of Information Act, request seeking records that will explain what police were responding to when they mistakenly took Butler into custody, a FOIA officer responded that no information could be supplied without the name and date of birth of the person arrested. They're not going to give them that information anyway, because that's how dirty these officers are. They're not going to do it because they know they were wrong, and they're not going to even give them that information. Despite objections that the FOIA request sought only incident report related to the event of February 24, the FOIA officer did not respond. A public information officer for the Illinois State Police said last week that she would try to help provide information ASAP. 5 days later, no information was provided. Oh, yeah, they're not going to do that anyway. Okay, the fallout for Butler. Before the EIU swim team stopped for dinner in East Moline on February 24th, the mood on the bus was upbeat. The energy before we stopped was really lively, excited, having a good time, Butler says. Afterwards, you can see the energy change. Some people were crying. Some teammates try holding Butler's hand, he said. He pulled it away. I was their first African American teammate. The first swimmer they seen of color, he said. They were all pretty quiet. After about 10 minutes, I couldn't take the silence anymore. He made an announcement to his teammates as a way of checking in and reassuring them. I said, I'm okay. You're okay, he said. I'm kind of glad that I did that. But Butler said he was putting up a front to hide his anguish. It couldn't last. When we switched out drivers at another rest stop, getting off the bus, everyone was next to me, staying as close as possible. He said, the assistant coach hugged me and said he loved me. That kind of brought me on the tears. It got harder to keep that front going. I tried my hardest not to cry around. His coach encouraged him to call his parents and tell them what happened. Butler's parents were angry and upset to hear what police had done to their son, he said. I was blessed to have parents who gave me the proper tools for reacting to law enforcement, which they hope I never had to use. The now 20-year-old said it could have gone a different way. A kid like me who stayed on the straight and narrow could have been killed. I didn't resist at all. I complied before they told me to do anything. The ACLU lawsuit addressed the emotional impact that resulted from Butler's mistaken run-in with the police. Mr. Butler was traumatized by this incident. The suit states, since the event, he has felt angry, scared, and depressed. He has had trouble concentrating at school and participating in activities. In class the next day, Mr. Butler found himself staring down at the bruises around his wrist, playing the previous night's events in his head until finally he realized his class had ended. It was the only person still sitting there. Nearly a year since the incident has passed, Butler's emotion has varied over time. In the beginning, I didn't even know it was. In the beginning, I didn't even know it. It was fear, he said. As the months went on, it was, why? Did I do something wrong? Then it became disappointment. I know not all officers are like that, but it was pretty disappointing what it's like to be of color in America. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the article. Ladies and gentlemen, this young man, Jaylan Butler, could have been killed that night. He could have been killed by these police officers. It would have been another hashtag justice for Jaylan Butler. And these officers knew what they were doing. Don't let that fool you. Well, we didn't know. We made a mistake about it. They already knew ever since they stopped this young man. They knew what they were doing. They handcuffed the brother, put the gun in his face, and said, don't move, I'll blow your fucking head off. They knew exactly what he was doing. The coach and the bus driver told these officers that he's with them. The bus driver said he's one of the passengers. He's the only black man on the swim team. And they said that they couldn't identify the bus. It says Eastern Illinois University on the side of that bus. The Jaylan Butler jacket says EIU on it, which means he's not only he's a college student, but he's part of the swim team. And they still doing him bad. And even if they find out they made a mistake, then the officer said, well, he still was arrested for resisting. He wasn't resisting. He was following he was complying with what the officer was doing. And he said that and Jaylan Butler said that the father taught him well when he got stopped by police. He handled it so well. But this is so sad that in black men in America, the thing of it is that if it wasn't for the head coach, if it wasn't for the bus driver, what would have happened to Jaylan Butler? He would have been killed that night, and it would have been hashtag justice for Jaylan Butler. You see, all them unarmed black men and women been murdered by police. You see list of them, and luckily Jaylan. I'm glad that Jaylan Butler is allowed to tell the story for real, because he would have been killed in front of everybody. These officers don't care, and they still refuse who the officers were. They did not even give them badge numbers, what department they're from, or nothing. So they knew exactly what they're doing, and they still refusing it. And obviously, like I said, the ACLU, because you violate you violate his civil rights as well as you violate his human rights. That's why the ACLU is involved. So, it was so bad that he was traumatized. And he's still remembering in his head what these officers has done to him. So it is really sad, ladies and gentlemen. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that Jaylan Butler's okay. I'm glad that the parents, like I said, they filed a complaint. The ACLU has filed a lawsuit on their behalf. They could have had their own attorney to file a lawsuit, but I'm glad everything worked out. But still, again, like Jaylan Butler said, ladies and gentlemen, it could have been worse. He could have been dead instead of, being alive. Y'all let me know what you think about this. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this is Lions Den signing off. Deuces.